Good morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity and also the weekend. And today we're going to be doing a Panalisa Let's Make This. Now yesterday I showed you a die which was all in one piece, and I've now cut it apart, and we're going to do the fairy sort of panorama diorama today. So I've cut the pieces apart, and these are your back pieces. Of course you can use whichever of these you want to, separately, singly, whatever. It's entirely up to you. And I've got some double-sided sticky tape because I reused mine, and I've just stuck it to the back of my hand. And these are your front pieces, and you can face those up whichever way you want to. Now I decided, and I did say yesterday when I measured it, that it would be perfect for a 5x5, or you could extend it and even make it larger. To extend, I'll move these two out of the way. Instead of, doing your cut like that and then getting your craft knife, because you've got to go along this line here and snip that little space there. So you'll just take your craft knife and go along. But if you want to, you can spread them out and make your card longer. So when you're doing something like that, I suppose you could go in really short with that layer and then go in long with that layer. I mean, obviously you've got to have a little bit of overlap just to hide those cut edges. So you can totally do it like that if you want to, or do it the way I'm doing today, which is kind of layer upon layer. Right, so you're going to need 3 pieces of 5x5. I'm choosing watercolor cardstock because I want to use those distress inks that I received, and maybe a little bit of water, and also blend the background. Now this is how you do it. Now I can't actually see the camera at the moment, so I'm going to have a look in a minute. Now you can go higher up, which is a nice idea, leaving yourself oh, I'm blurred, I don't want to do that. Leaving yourself a space down here, which is going to allow you to stamp a sentiment or tie a piece of ribbon or anything. So that's basically how I would prefer to do it, just like that. I mean, you've got to center yourself up. I want you to be able to see there. So I've got a space here down below, and then all you do is take your double-sided tape, fasten your pieces down, and then you run it through your die cutting machine. I want you to have a look at that. Let's go close. So there's your, I use Scotch removal tape. So you make sure that you're completely straight around all of your edges. You cut that, and you do this one in exactly the same way on your second piece. Your third square is going to be blank, and that's going to be your background, and I'll show you that. And of course we've also got our separate pieces, which are going to cut out little mushrooms. You've got little sort of like holes and embossed areas that you can use your blending brush through, and of course also the little fairy. So these will all be cut out separately, also using my Walmart watercolor paper, which I'm always raving about. If you haven't got it, get it, because I think it's like $10 and something for 50 sheets. It's by the B Company, or the B Paper Company, and you get it from Walmart. And you can also get it at Walmart online if you can't get to a store, so that you can have it delivered. Right, so as you have seen me just attach that to there, I'm going to do exactly the same thing with these. They will be placed down, and they will go on to my second sheet and be run through. Right, I am going to die cut, and I will be straight back. Right, so I've done my die cutting, and I'm trying to get organised here. I've put out my Panalisa Distress Oxide inks. Now, if you saw yesterday's video, you will have seen all the colours, and they will become apparent as I take one off at a time. And I've also got my blending foams here, which I keep all of my blending foams for all of my oxide and distress inks and any other ink pad in these tubes. And I've probably got, I don't know, maybe 200 of these up on the shelf. So I've got those there so that I can just put my blending tool in and go, and you'll see that in a second. I've got my watercolor brush, and I like to use my ink pad when not ink pads, stamp pads. This is from Alina Craft, and I just, you know, squidge my ink pad onto it if I want to do some watercolor blending. And I've also got my, I'm just reaching across the desk here, my cheap little squirty bottle from Walmart. So I've got those at the ready. I'm just making sure my volume's up. Good grief, if I'd have done all this and my volume was down, it would have been terrible. Right, so I said cut 3 pieces of cardstock 5 by 5. Now you want one that is plain, that is your background, and that's what we're going to blend some ink onto in a minute. And then this is the one, can you see where I've cut it? If you've got a little bit of an overlap, don't worry about that, because, you know, not everyone is perfect, and you can hide those with your extra bits. Now, if you wanted to, you can have your little door open. So as I said, you can just use this section all on its own and dress it up. It's, you know, it's absolutely wonderful. But because it is meant to lay out, I'm going to behave myself, and that's how I'm going to do it. So that goes onto there. And then your next layer, excuse my throat, is your flowers layer. So that's those 2 bits. And you can see where I use my craft knife along there as well, but I'm not worried. And as you look at this, you can see I've got my lovely border down below. So I could stamp a sentiment there if I wanted to, but those are the layers. They are exactly the same size. I'm just going to tap them down. But looking at that, if you're somebody that likes to do all one colour in white, you know, with a little touch of, I don't know, gold watercolour or something, that would look absolutely gorgeous as is. But we're going to go a bit crazy because we've got lots of colours. And of course, in that die set, you get lots of other bits. So I've cut 2 mushrooms. I've cut out 2 ferns. I've got 4 of these little dandelion type flowers. There are 2 different styles. So you've got the long stem and you've got the short stem. And of course, we've got a little fairy. So those are the little extras. And I'm just going to pop those over here. Make sure I'm not tangling them all up. Right. So I'm just going to move those little bits to there. So the first thing I want to do is do the background, and I'm just going to quick and simple blends this. Now you kind of got to decide, you know, it is the realms of fantasy, it's a fairy, and you can use all kinds of bright and wonderful colours. I am going to be a little bit boring and I'm going to stick with blue. So this is my broken china in here, my foam pad, and I think I may add a bit of yellow. So I just put that in and it picks it up and I don't get dirty fingers. So I'm just going to do some ink blending off the edge here. Now you can use a circle die cut if you want to create a sort of like yellow illumination in the middle so that you've got sunshine going on. But I'm just going to go off the page here, and this is a really, really lovely, vibrant shade. I hope that you can see that. And if I go quiet, it's because, you know, I'm having fun. So I'm kind of like, I'm going down here, but I want it to start to get a little bit paler. Now we can splash this with water, which I may do, and, you know, kind of get different effects there. But you can see that lovely paleness so that you've got some different tone, and you can keep going back, you know, with your card. Just grab your bottom layer, which is going to be my houses, and put that on the top and see how that looks. And that's really pretty with the white there, a bit snowy. So I'm going to go in with some green. And I've got bundled sage, and I totally forgot to get some kitchen paper to wipe up my mess. I'll be back in a second. Right, so I just grabbed myself a load of kitchen paper and tidied up my mess there. And I'm going to go with bundled sage. I'm trying to get it in camera. Along the bottom. So this one is bundled sage. And I've got down to my bundled sage foam there. And we're going to pick some of that up. And it may be that it's kind of like darker at one edge, so I'm going to come in off the edge again so that I'm keeping all the darkness down there. And then I'm going to come up to meet my blue. I keep saying I'm going to actually fix my camera onto the wall, and and then it won't shake because it's actually on my table, and as I'm ink blending I can feel it wobbling, which is not very professional. So I have now blended my ink up to my blue, so I'm kind of being a little bit traditional here, in as much as, you know, I've got my sky and I've got some grass. I'm just going to run that out a little bit. And I think I am going to spritz this with some water. So I've got my squirty bottle and I'm just going to go with big drips and drabs. I'm just going to let that soak just for a second and then go in and touch it. So I'm quite inky spattery there. And then I'm going to do a little bit more. So I'm being quite bold. Right, because what you've got to remember is, yes, you are in the realms of fantasy whenever you're dealing with a fairy. Right, I'm going to let that dry and I will be right back. Right, that's dry, and I've decided I'm going to add some squeezed lemonade to my background as well. Why not? But what I'm going to do is squish my pad to my mat. So I've got some yellow going on down there, and then I'm going to squirt a little bit of water just to pick that up. Now this is going to change completely the entire look of it, so I'm going all over the place with this one. Ooh, quite like that. And there is a lot of blue coming off as well, but I kind of like the yellowy bit in it. Right, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go down there as well. Oh, I like that. Can you see that? Right, so that's going to be the colour of my background, and I need to tidy up my mess, and I also need to let it dry. So I'm just going to pause the camera and then I will be right back. Okay, so that's dry, and that is my background, which is a little muted, and I really like it. The next step is going to be using some of these colours to do watercolour. So that essentially now is the background. So the next thing is this, and how are we going to do this? Now, if you look at the die, you'll see that there are embossed areas. Let's get that up there. And you can ink through those afterwards or before. It's entirely up to you. But I want to do some watercolour, and I've decided that I kind of want weathered wood, which is a browny shade, and I'm going to find elements within this card that all require that shade, so that I'm doing everything all at once, if you know what I mean. So the stem of the mushroom and those poppy heads, I'm going to use weathered wood, and I'm going to take the lid off. Whoops, there we go. I'm putting it down on my block there. A little squirt of water and my water brush, and it's at this point you hope that the last time you used your water brush you actually bothered to clean it. Yeah, I've done things and ended up with blue where it should have been green and all kinds of stuff, so make sure your water brush is clean. And I'm just very quickly going to do these poppy heads, and because you do not want to be sitting there for, you know, however long it's going to take me to do these, which is probably about 10 minutes, I'll do them and I'll be right back. Right, so I've got the poppy stems done, and as I was saying, in exactly the same colour, I'm going to do the mushroom stalk here. Now there is an embossed section within the die so that you can lay the die over and do even more highlighting for this after. So you can see basically what I'm doing here. I will come back and do a different colour for the door, but I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Right, so I've done that, and I want the underside of my mushroom to be this colour but paler. So I'm just going to squirt a little bit more water onto my stamp block and just mix up whatever is left. I'm going to turn this around so that I can see where I'm going, and then I just want this to be paler. And then I'm just going to wipe that block. I've got blue on here, so I hope it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you're just swiping really quickly. So I want to take that off. And then I want to go, whoops, right back into weathered wood again. And I want it dark this time. I only need a little bit, so I just use the edge of the pad there. I'm going to pick that up, and I've got a shadow line here, so I just want to enhance that. And then of course coming up under here you'd also have a shadow. I'll put that bit in there, and I'll come off a little bit darker here. Just squiggle your brush around. So that's what I've got for my mushroom. Of course you can have fun, you can use markers or anything. Now I haven't got a clue what that bit's going to look like when the top layer goes on, but I've just coloured it in anyway. Right, so I'm now going to clear off the weathered wood, and I'm thinking about the cap of my mushroom, and I think I'm going to go really dark with that. And yeah, well, you know, I'm sitting here thinking and I'm thinking about the colours that I've got, and I'm thinking about mushrooms. So I think I'm going to go abandoned coral, and then when I put the dye back on top, I'll just use straight from the pad and blend through the dye and see what kind of effects we end up with. So that's what I'm going to do. I have squidged down my abandoned coral, and I'm going to get a squirt of water so that we can move it around. I'm going to put it this way again so I can see it. And then we're going in with this lovely pinky peach colour. And just like that. So it's on there, but it's not very, very strong. And we have a chimney there, and I'm not sure. I might do the chimney in, I think I've got bundled twigs or something. It's around here somewhere. That's spice, gathered twigs, yeah. I'm going to do the chimney in gathered twigs. So I'm going in a little bit stronger just on this edge, so that I've got a little bit of shadow coming off there. And then just blend it in. There. So that's where we're at so far. Right, now my entire frame is going to be done in, if I can find it, pine needles. That's what I'm going to do the entire frame with. So I'm going to watercolor that and come back, and these two bits here are also going to be done in the pine needles. And I think I'm going to do yellow up here, but I'll do the stem. So I'm just going to do all of this in green, and I'll be right back. Right, so I've done that bit, and I've decided the flower and the door are going to be done in yellow. So I'm just going to put a little bit down there, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to lay the dye over to make those colours pop. So a little bit of yellow. I'm going to have a sunshiny door. Why not? Please excuse my croaky throat. And I'm going to go yellow up here. A little bit of sunshine in the sky. So you just do not have to be perfect. You can just dibble and dabble your brush and get what you want. Right, so the next thing is the gathered twigs. So I'm just going to get that yellow off. I'm just brushing that off on there. And I'm going down in my pile here to get gathered twigs. Now I need a little bit on here just to do my chimney part, and then we're going to use the dye. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I want my chimney pot to be quite dark. And then I'm picking up some more concentrated colour off this bit here, so that I can do the cap of the chimney. Hopefully that will look a little bit darker still. Right. Okay, so we've got that. I'm just going to let that dry for a second, and we'll come back, and then we'll start blending through the dye. Right, so I'm pretty sure that that is dry enough, and basically all of the colours and the way I want them are down there. So this is the gathered twigs, and I've got my blending tool. And what you need to do now is take your dye. You can see all of those holes in there, and you need to marry it up. Now you might need to just, you know, turn it upside down so that you can slot everything back in, just like that. And then flip it over and pop it down, and you can see there the holes that you can go through. So I'm just taking the lid off the gathered twigs, and I'm taking my blending foam and squishing it in, and then just very gently go over the top. Now if you've got your little stencil brushes, which I have, and I'm very naughty because this is a perfect application for your small stencil brushes, and I might stand up in a minute and just pick them up just to show you. Right, now we're going into the windows and into the door, and we've got a little bit here, And of course, the reason your stencil brushes are so good is because they're small and they're not going to go into areas where they shouldn't go. So I'm just going to go and get my stencil brushes. Right, so I've grabbed one here and this is what they look like, and I'm just picking ink up, as you can see there on the end of it, and then I can start going into tiny areas, and I'll do that again just to highlight them. And the bristles just go down in the holes so much nicer. And I think I've got it this time. And then we lift up for the reveal. So now you've got all your highlighted bits, and you can, of course, if you want to, go over that again with water to blend everything out and soften it and still have your highlights in there. Now the next one to do, using the same colour, and of course you can go off and wash your dyes. I'm just going to pop that there, and we're going to do the poppy in exactly the same way. So I'm just picking it up, flipping it over, slot your dye back into there, and then turn it over. And remember that this is kind of yellow, so you don't really want to go too deeply on that. And I do not want my poppies to be as dark as the house, so I'm just kind of running off the little bits that I've got left on my brush. And just push those up in there, and we'll see what we end up with. And of course you can go in with a different shade of green if you're doing the leaves, but I've almost run the colour out of here, so I'm just going to go through there and see if it just picks up just a little bit on those tips. I'm going to go over that and through there, and then we'll be able to find out exactly what we got. I'm going to lift that off. I think this should be a little bit subtler. There we go. It's a lot more subtle. I kind of like went overboard a bit there, I think. I maybe should have rubbed my brush off a lot better. But that is the background layer. And as I was saying, you know, if you want to soften that up, you can absolutely do that with a watercolour brush. I'm just going to get my tissue paper, move that out of the way, and I'll show you how to do that. If you feel that you got too carried away there, I've got a clean piece of tissue paper, I've got my watercolour brush, and I've got my stamp block. And if my video is going on a bit, I do apologise. I'm just putting some clean water down on there. I'm going to turn this towards me so that I can see. And then I'm just going to get my water. I'm going to put a little bit on there and then lift off. Do exactly the same thing. And you can see that it's softening it. Now you can go over this and do it as many times as you want to until you're almost taking it back to really, really pale brown. But I think that's okay. It just felt a little bit too dark for me before, so we've removed a lot of that, and I want to do the same thing on my door. I think that real dark brown against my yellow isn't exactly how I saw it, if you know what I mean. I'm going to lift that out there. Now, of course, this is a little more fiddly. And it could be that I just take some more water and just blend that in. So I've got more of a pine wood coloured door. And the other layer that goes on top actually hides most of this, so just bear that in mind too. So I'm actually going to go back over that with my yellow. I'll just grab my squeezed lemonade, dab some of that down. That's quite strong in colour. And then I'm just going to go right back over the top. So that now is the back base and the base that we've done, and you've pretty much seen how to get your colours out and just diddle and whittle around. So I'll be able to do the top one on my own because that's just going to be all green. But if I grab the base now, you can see we've got our green below and our blue above. And then this one, if I put that down, now stands on there. And you start to see the fantasy of it. It's really pretty. If you want to get your blending tool and go around the edges to highlight, you can absolutely do that. You have to be a little bit careful when you're doing it. Come off the edges very, very gently, just to cast a little bit of a shadow like that, so that when you popping it down, you've got that, you know, definite highlight between that and the background. And you can do exactly the same on your poppy. So just very, very gently touch the edges. That wasn't very gently, but you know, I cast a shadow there. I'm just going into my scruffy piece of paper and getting that up. And then I can tap that, but that's okay because that's like in a shadow area. That's my excuse. So we've got these two, as I just said. I'm now going to go away and I'm going to colour this in greens. These bits I'll do in yellow again, exactly the same as you saw me do that. And then I'll come back and we'll put it all together. Okay, so my colouring is complete, and you can see how I've done that using all of Panalisa's oxide inks. We've got the little fairy. I will actually pick that up and show it you. So the seedless preserves is on the dress there, and a watered down gathered twigs, and I've used broken china again. And all of these go in or onto your card so that you can create a scene. So we did the back, we did the base layer, which is that one, and of course they do line up, and I completed the top layer. Now what I want to do is I want to glue these two layers together, but I want to put some foam tape around this bit. So that is what I'm going to do, and I'll vanish and then we'll come back and arrange these bits. Right, so I've got foam tape on this layer, and you can see I've kind of dotted it around, and that is the one that is going to go onto the base here. So that one will go there. Now this one, I want to attach a few things before I glue it down, and that will be glued flat on top of that one. So I'm going to look at how I've got this, and I want my fairy here because that's kind of a focal point. Now, it could be that I decide to pop her up on just a dot of foam and have her coming off the back there, or she can swing freely. And I'm thinking maybe foam, so I'm going to go with that. And then I'm kind of looking at bits like this, and do I want those over the top? And I think I'll probably do. And I've got to remember as well that using this frame, you've got your flowers to the front as well. Do you see that? So you don't want to kind of like be wasteful where you're popping all your little bits. Like you can go through there with that if you wanted to. So do you see what I mean? So I'm going to, that one couldn't be glued in until afterwards, but I can certainly glue that one onto there. And I've got my glue bottle, and I've just got to hope that it's going to squirt out for me. And I think that it is. So I'm going to pop that one in there because I quite like it. So I'm just going to hover it around, and it's just a little bit of glue down at the bottom of the stem. And I'm trying to think where my fairy's going, so I'm going to pop that there. So I've got that floating on behind. Now, if you wanted to kind of elevate your flowers, because like you've got one up here, you could absolutely take that now and you could pop it right behind the mushroom house or something, so that you've got a little bit coming out. Or you can even go behind your poppy. In fact, I think I'll do that. So for that one, it just means flipping it over and then just putting down a touch of glue and then getting your flower upside down like that. We're going to go sort of like partially, I think, and then sticking it down. And then when we flip it over, so you've got a little bit now peeking out from behind your poppy, and you could do exactly the same thing here if you don't feel that you've got enough detail going on. But just remember to keep popping on your top frame to make sure that you're getting the full benefit of what you're putting down. But I kind of quite like the idea of lots of flowers coming out from behind here. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I think I'm going to save my two little mushrooms and that bit to go right on the front. So I'm going to go with another one, but this time I'm going to go behind it. And I can see there where I've got my my double-sided adhesive. So I want to stay kind of within the border. And where I've put that, I could pull it forward if I wanted to, but I just think it makes it more dimensional having it behind. So I really like that. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down onto here, and I'm going to glue this one flat on top of here, and I will be right back. Okay, so I did that bit, and then it's just a matter of where we're going to put our little things. Like, the focal point really is the fairy, and I quite like where I put that flower because it means she's going in for a sniff of the fairies, or shall I say the sniff of the flowers. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? We've been going now for 38 minutes, can you believe? So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on her foot and her ankle, and she can float quite freely there. So she is quite literally smelling the roses. So my little fairy is going to stand there. And then I've got my little mushrooms that I did. So I need to decide where they're going to go and how we're going to arrange all that. Kind of like the idea of another flower being there. And then perhaps a fern leaf. And maybe one there, just hanging down a bit. Yeah, as you see that's how I'm going to run off and glue it, and then we're going to add a couple of little glittery highlights. Right, so that's all glued down, and we can get in. Hopefully the camera's not all blurred. So how close we can get. There we go. So we've got our little mushrooms, we've got our layered up flowers, we've got our fairy, we've got our poppies, all watercoloured and looking pretty. Now the next thing, and I highly recommend these, is the Uniball. Am I getting it right? No, yeah, Uniball Signo, and it is called Sparkling. These are the most sparkliest of pens you will ever encounter, and I'm going to prove it to you. I've been using them for years and I absolutely love them. But if you're doing like little fairy things, you can just go in and you can just gently touch your pen. The ink flows at a very, very soft touch. So you don't have to like press hard or scribble. You just quite literally pop your pen down. And as we're talking fairies, as I said, you've got to have a little bit of sparkle somewhere. So I've got a few sparkles in there. I'll hold that up so you can see just how sparkly that is. Right, I'm going to play with it until it works. Can you see that? It is just absolutely gorgeous. So I've got a few little drops here, and they could be my fireflies or something. And then I think I'm going to put a little bit onto the berries, just tiny little dots. I'm going quiet because I'm having fun. So that, you know, when the person gets it, there's like other little bits of prettiness and dimension to it. There you go. Isn't it wonderful? Ooh, it's so pretty. I mean, I'm somebody, you know, when I get pens out, I just get totally carried away and I don't care. And there is a silver one in this set, which is equally as beautiful. And you may have seen me use that before. I mean, I'm one of these people who, I am a hoarder of pens, I must admit. I have about 3,000 of them now. I do use them. I do love to use colours. And occasionally, you know, you just haven't used something for a while, but you have to get it out and you have to use it. So she got a little bit of gold now in her wings. Just a little bit. There's a little bit of gold on those berries down there. And I certainly think that I should do these berries here. I mean, this won't take me long at all. And I've also got my white gel pen, so I can use that somewhere in a second. And just by going in and having a little play after you finish making something, adding extra little details, not only is it fun, but it just looks nice. Well, I'm going to put, I think, always make sure that your ink is flowing. Test it on your finger. The warmth of your body will always make a gel pen run. So I'm going to go for a highlight there on my chimney. Just make sure that I've got a straight line. So I've got a little highlight on there, and I think I'm going to have a little highlight here. Not too much of one. I think that's it. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. I mean, I could totally go in and make these little water dots that I put on my mushroom a little bit brighter in some places. But other than that, I'm quite happy with it. I think that's really cute. I love that. And if you stuck with me today, it's been like almost 45 minutes, I'm sure. But it's Friday, and I hope you have an absolutely awesome weekend. And if you get this, I hope you have great fun making it, because you can just do it in whatever colour you want. And as I showed right at the very beginning of the video, even just done in white, if you put a few little splashes of gold or silver metallic watercolour, it would just look absolutely stunning. Right, that is what I have for you today. Do have an absolutely awesome weekend, and I'll be up on Monday with who knows what. As usual, all links below. Bye.